Human beings have always asked the same question. What happens when we die? Is there another side? A heaven? A realm? Or another world waiting for us? But something very interesting happens when you look closely at that question. The question itself might reveal more about the human mind than the answer to that question ever could. Because throughout history, humans haven't just asked questions about death. We've asked about continuation. As far as I'm aware, the questions about death and continuation have always existed across all cultures throughout history. Death and continuation is spoke about in religion. We often confuse the words within religion. We're not sure if they're literal, if they're symbolic, if they're metaphorical. But still, the questions regarding death and continuation exist. Within spiritual cultures and spiritual traditions, it's the same thing. And of course you have out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences. Life just seems to have this underlying question. Humans seem to have this underlying question about death and continuation. But it's not that humans fear death. It's not just death that we fear. We fear disappearing, ending, loss. And the mind really seems to struggle with the idea of ending. It struggles with the idea that experience could just simply stop. But it appears that there may be more evidence for continuation than not. We have out-of-body experiences, and like I said, near-death experiences. And we have other states of altered awareness that we can experience. These experiences seem to change the way we think about the questions regarding death, because these experiences feel like proof of continuation. And these experiences can feel extremely convincing, extremely real, more real. But for me, what these experiences show most clearly is that experience itself can change. It can change its texture. And the moment that the texture of experience changes, the mind starts to build a story about what it's experiencing, and it naturally starts to build explanations. These types of conversations regarding death and continuation, they happen a lot more deeply within my private Patreon. I will link that below if this resonates with you, because it's a safe space where we don't have to focus on belief, and we don't have to be taken away into any story. And it's very important to explore these type of topics carefully, because for me, questions about the other side reveals more about identity than anything else. Because what we're really asking is, does this continue? Does my identity continue? Do I continue? The me that I know I am, my name, my personality, you could call it an ego. Does that continue? And that's a very natural response when we think about death and continuation, because we don't want our identity to dissolve. We don't just want to be nothing. And I think it's a very natural instinct to want to continue. It's a very natural human instinct. And it's because the mind isn't just asking about death. It's more so asking if it survives its own disappearance. And what exploration shows for me, in my experience, exploration through altered states and out-of-body experiences, lucid dreams, I tend not to focus on the stories. I tend not to focus on conversations, locations. For anyone who follows me and listens to me, they know this. But I tend to focus more on the textures, how the experiences feel, how the experiences assemble, how they disassemble. How do I take form? How does form appear? How does it disappear? How does reality appear and disappear? How does communication feel? If communication happens, how does it happen? I've noticed that textures of experience change depending on stability of awareness. So the more stable you are in your human life, the more stable you are in an out-of-body experience. And the more stable you are in an out-of-body experience, the difference in texture. Now, this is what people may refer to as higher or lower realms. I don't place labels on textures of experience. I don't call them realms or dimensions. They just are existence in contrast, consciousness in texture. And what I've found is if you are unstable, there will be an element of fear, and fear greatly changes the experience. And no matter what experience you have, as soon as you, let's say, for ease, return, your mind quickly grabs onto the experience to try to place it in another box. This is who I saw. This is where I went. This is what it was. That's just an interpretation by language, by human language. It's not direct experience. Anything that is not direct experience is just a story. It's just thought. Someone said to me before, and I'll use this analogy because I liked it. There can be 2,000 people tell you about a mountain that they visited. They can tell you in their own way, and each version is slightly different. But until you physically go and experience that mountain, you will never truly know it. And this is why we have to be very careful with how we speak about consciousness and existence. And for me, the interesting part isn't where we go, it's how quickly the mind tries to explain what it's just experienced. And that is where belief systems are born. The question about the other side may never disappear, and that's okay. Humans are naturally curious about existence. But what matters more is how we live while we're here, while we are in this experience. And exploration can be fascinating. But stability in being human is what actually allows those experiences to mean something.